Good afternoon, everybody. It's Lorraine, Alternative Homesteading. I hope everybody's doing well. On May 20th, 2026. Oh, it's usually around this time that the criminals do something really disgusting. It's like May 20th, July 20th, every year for years. So we'll just have to wait for tonight. Oh, you know what they did? This morning I woke up, I guess it was around 7 o'clock, and I had internet connection because I was listening to YouTube in the background. Suddenly, the video stops. I have no internet for 40 minutes. Sky's blue, there's no wind, no nothing. I have got no internet and no phone service. 40 minutes. And then it just pops back on again. Usually this is the time when the criminals are maneuvering around my property for their shift work. But I found a video that was really interesting. I don't even know how I found it. Maybe it was just in my feed. But you know how Sabrina Wallace has mentioned that we've got the biofield. I mean, Reiki people call it the aura, the energy field around your body. Some people can actually physically see the aura around the body. Some people can feel it. You know, when you approach somebody, sometimes you feel as if you're being repelled or attracted to that person because we are electric and magnetic. Okay, so that's why, you always hear the expression of, oh, that person's got magnetism, because that person has got an astrological configuration, energy imprinted in them that attracts different people for different reasons, right? So, but anyway, she was mentioning about how these criminals are trying to harvest our energy. It's not just the loosh. It's not just, the street theater where they want us to react and record it and stuff like that, or because they get off on it or whatever. They're literally trying to harvest the natural energy within everyone's body. I think that's why they knock me out all the time. They're stealing my energy. They're stealing my time. So this video is entitled "Your Bones Generate Electricity Every Time You Walk." It's by a person I've never heard of before, Feynman Reborn. And I'll read what he says here, and then I'll play just a little bit of it. You can listen to it yourself. It is absolutely fascinating. Most people think your skeleton is the dead part, the framework, the hanger that your body is draped on. They could not be more wrong. Every step you take, your shin bone produces a tiny electrical voltage. Shin bone. And that's why they're always hitting me in the shins. They're always hitting me in the shins. So anyway, I've got to send this to voicemail. 1 second. And microscopic cells buried inside that bone are listening for the signal. They have been listening every second of your life, and when they stop hearing, your skeleton starts vanishing. In this video, this Feynman, Feynman, walks us through the strangest mechanical electrical trick in your body. Now, Sabrina Wallace has mentioned this so many times. It's called the piezoelectric property of bone collagen, first discovered by Fukada and Yasuda in Japan in 1957. That's the year before I was born. And it explains how it solves a 65-year-old mystery posed by Wolff's Law. How does a buried cell know whether you've been walking, running, or lying still? And then what he does here is he provides the sources and further reading, and I'll show it to you here. And he just posted this a couple of days ago. And I had to use another phone because they've totally hacked my other phone. So I'll just play like a teeny little bit of it so you can hear how fascinating this is, and then I'm going to go on to some of your comments.
Just one, right where you are. Now what happened? You probably want to say, well, my foot lifted, the muscles pulled, the foot came down, the floor pushed back. That's a step. Fine. That's true. That's also the most boring possible answer to that question. Because for a small fraction of a second, while your foot was hitting the ground, something happened inside your leg that I think is one of the most peculiar facts about being a human being. Your shin bone for an instant became a battery.
Your shin bone. Wait. Hold up.
Tiny.
Your shin bone, for a moment, became a battery when you took a step. Every step creates a spark, and bones generate brief electrical bursts again and again and again. And what he describes in this video, which is fascinating, is that they have noticed time and again when somebody, let's say, breaks a leg, an arm, and they put a cast on it, and then they immobilize that bone to cause it to heal back, that bone doesn't grow back as well as a bone that was uncasted, which is amazing. So let me continue here.
But real. And then you took the next step, and it did it again. And again. And again. Every step, your bones are producing little flickers of electricity. Right now, as you sit there, if you tap your foot, the bone in your foot is doing it. I'm going to tell you something funny. Almost all of human history went by with people walking around and falling down and breaking bones and healing and getting old, and bone doctors looking at bones and dissecting them and weighing them and grinding them up to look at the powder, and nobody, not one person, knew that bones were doing this. Nobody, not the Greeks, not the Romans, not the great anatomists of Europe, not the doctors of the 1800s. The trick was happening trillions of times a day in every living animal on the planet, and the whole human species missed it. Until two scientists in Japan in the 1950s finally caught the bone in the act. How does that happen? How does a thing this strange hide in plain sight for that long? All right, let me show you. We're going to start with the simplest possible thing, and then I'm going to show you a layer underneath that, and then a layer underneath that. And by the time we're done, I want you to have the feeling that the floor of your understanding has been pulled up, and there's another floor, and another floor, and another floor. Start here. Take a step. Your foot hits the ground. Your weight comes down. What happens to your shin bone? It gets squeezed. That's all. The bone is a column of bone. The weight pushes from above. The floor pushes back from below, and the bone in between gets compressed. A tiny amount. You won't see it with your eyes. But if I had a sensitive enough instrument, I could measure the bone shortening, a fraction of a millimeter, every time you take a step. The bone is springy. It compresses, it bounces back, it compresses, it bounces back. Like a very stiff spring inside your leg.
So, most of us think that our bones are solid. But what he's describing is that every step that we take, there's like a little springboard in the bones. And he goes on to say that it has a lot to do with the collagen that's inside of the bone. But I think this is absolutely fascinating in light of being a targeted individual. And of course, with all the data centers popping up all over the world, all over the country in particular, it's not that they're just collecting data. It appears as if it's requiring an inordinate amount of energy and water. And what are humans comprised of? Anyone want to take a guess? Energy and water, right? We are electric and magnetic beings, and we are filled with water, which is why for all the targeted people out there that are getting heated up overnight, your collagen is dissipating, the water in your body is dissipating, which is why it's so important, like if you wake up with a headache, to drink water and get moving. But I think this is absolutely fascinating, and how they may be harvesting our energy through our bodies, through the rebound, through the compressing, through walking. Walking squeezes the bone.
Okay, that's the obvious part. Bones get squeezed when you walk. A child knows this. A dog knows this. The question I want to ask you is, what is a bone? What is it actually made of? If you ask most people, they'll say bone is calcium, or bone is a kind of stone, or bone is a hard thing. None of these answers is wrong exactly, but they all miss what's interesting. Because if a bone were really just a hard, stony thing, it would shatter like a piece of chalk the first time you fell down. You couldn't walk on it. You couldn't run. You couldn't jump off a step. Try to walk on a column made of pure crystal. The first stress, it cracks. Try to walk on a column made of pure rubber. It bends and you fall over. Bone is neither. Bone is a composite. It is two completely different materials, mixed together, in such an exquisite way that the result has properties neither of the two materials has by itself. What are the two materials? One is collagen. Collagen is a protein, a long, ropey, flexible protein. If you took bone and dissolved away everything else, you'd be left with a kind of leathery, bendy structure, holding the shape of the bone, but soft. You could tie it in a knot. The other material is a kind of crystal, calcium phosphate, in a particular form called hydroxyapatite. If you took bone and burned away the protein, you'd be left with a brittle, chalky version of the bone shape that would crumble in your fingers. Hard, but breakable. Here is the magic. You take the soft, ropey collagen, and you grow tiny crystals of hydroxyapatite all along it, soaked through it like sugar in a sponge. The crystals make it stiff. The collagen keeps it from shattering. Together you get a material that's hard enough to hold up a hippopotamus and tough enough to take a fall and bounce. We make this stuff industrially nowadays. Sort of, we call it composite material, like fiberglass or carbon fiber. But your body was making it billions of years before any engineer ever thought of it. Bone is collagen plus crystals. Got it. But why am I telling you this? Why does this matter? Here's why. Some crystals, not all, but some, have an extraordinary property. When you squeeze them, they produce voltage. When you stretch them, they produce voltage in the opposite direction. Squeeze, voltage. Release, voltage flips. Squeeze again, voltage. The crystal is converting mechanical pressure into electrical signal. It does this all by itself, with no battery, no power source, nothing. The energy of the squeeze becomes the energy of the voltage.
Do you hear that? No power source at all. And this is why I believe all the criminals in control want to harvest our naturally producing energy. Leave a comment down below. I will post a link to this. Obviously, I don't want to get copyright, and it's 40 minutes long, so you'll have to listen to this later. But I want to read some of your comments. So on the last video, the video about celebrity phrogging cases, people hiding in their homes, targeted surveillance and spying. So one person writes, talking about nutty, I discovered somebody using my shower when Barbie the movie came out. I came home after seeing the movie and my whole shower was ruined with tanning spray. It's like that to this day because I'm on a limited income. I still have my business. I'm unable to work on a regular basis. People don't understand how awful and how crazy this is. Phrogging is on a whole different level. I am so glad you're bringing awareness to this. They're the ones that need to be locked up. Another person says, wow, what's next doesn't surprise me. Somebody says, I have no doubt this goes on more often than not, especially as targeted individuals. I hate that label, but we all know it. I was just going to mention homeless shelters. If there's ones around, they'll happily use them and then dispose of them or hire them for other nefarious deeds. Why not? They have no jobs, no money. Having a big home, there's not one reason to get up and go out of bed to look around for these idiots who do this. Why? Because they already know that I'm awake or asleep when I am. And by the time I'd get up and look, they'd be long gone. It would be a lose-lose situation for us whom are targeted. I also noticed a cool breeze that comes through the house. My whole house alarm was disabled. I'd come home to windows open. I'd hear the door slam at night when supposedly set. Truly pathetic. They need such attention. I wonder what would happen if someone gave them appropriate attention instead of the sinister behavior accolades they receive for being the world's biggest losers. One person writes this. This is important. I had to leave Kentucky for my safety. I have been through it. My situation started in 2020 and it really kicked off in 2021. Mine started over a couple of inheritance thefts involving several family members, and it went from there. An absolute nightmare involving a lot of things that you have talked about. I moved to Maine. I was followed. So the crap could continue here, but even with that, it has still been better up here. There is something about the state you're in, Kentucky. I don't know if it's less education or prejudice against other beliefs or what, but it was terrifying down there. I literally had to escape. To this day, I am missing 3 months of mail. Please be careful. Yeah, so that a person lived in Kentucky and left for her life. So another person wrote, you just can't stop frogging. Got me paranoid as can be. 2 of my properties, I found step ladders in both of the attics. I'm building a special tank if I manage to catch any frogs around here. Which is, you've got to laugh about this stuff, right? So, you're going to build some special tanks for the Phroggers if you catch them. Then Ace of Cups says, well, my apartment is currently too small to frog. Well, that's not true. That's not true. She says, I've been asset stripped for about a decade now and blocked from many career opportunities. They're obsessed with trying to keep me small. Hopefully I'm not stuck in this situation much longer. But I'll tell you that they can get into a small space too. And a subscriber sent me a YouTube video that I watched. And for 3 years, a homeless man lived in the attic of a church. He had a little corner set up on the side. He would draw pictures of the church. He was very neat and clean and organized. He had his clothing stacked and he was kept clean and stuff. He had been in jail or prison at one time, and he found the church like 3 years ago and had been living there for 3 years. He was actually playing music and eating up there. He had a little stove, which is kind of alarming because, he could, if it's not attended to, he could easily, create a fire up there in the attic. So, but he was living there for 3 years. It wasn't for nefarious reasons. It was just because he was homeless, and he kept a journal, and he wrote all these wonderful things about the church, and that's probably why he was able to stay there as long. And the church didn't really notice so much that he was there. They would just pass it off to, a creaky floor or, little creaky noises and stuff like that. And then, of course, when they finally found him, they had to get rid of him. They called the police, and we don't know exactly what happened to him. Maybe he went back to jail or whatever. But they all claim that since he was gone, the whole energy of the church shifted, whereas before, they felt protected and profitable. And it's like, since he left, because that's what he was doing up there, he was praying all the time, protecting the church, protecting where he lived, and it was bestowing certain energy for the church, that when he split, when he was confiscated, everybody said that the church just didn't feel the same anymore. So those are some comments, and I thought it was really, really interesting about how your bones generate electricity every time you walk. Leave a comment down below. Do you think your bones generate energy and electricity? And do you think that as a targeted individual, that your energy, this piezoelectric effect, the mechanical into the electrical, where there's no battery needed, The pressure supplies the energy when you're walking. Do you feel that as a targeted person that your energy is being zapped for this nefarious purpose, for being a battery to these Luciferian Satanist losers?